So we are now preparing for our upcoming celebration of Mahashivaratri. And we're getting a bunch of different dravyas for the Abhishekam, different substances for bathing, the Shivalingam. And we plan to remain awake through the night and to make offerings to Lord Shiva. We went and got some bilva patras, the bilva leaves, which is very sacred to Lord Shiva. And we're getting many items for offering in our puja. And as we're preparing, I'm thinking of a question that people ask me often, especially when they see us preparing for big ceremonies like this, or big yajnams, fire ceremonies where we put all the offerings into the fire. People ask, well, does God need these things? Why does God need these things? Isn't this a waste of all these substances? Aren't we wasting these things if we pour a bunch of milk and yogurt and ghee and other substances over the Shivalingam and then we go and we pour it outside? Isn't this a waste? Or if we take a bunch of different herbs and flowers and expensive offerings and we put it in the fire, isn't this a waste? If a person has a very worldly consciousness, they're not focused on spirituality, then yes, this would seem like a great waste. They would say you could use those resources for so many different things. You could have given that money to me. I could make good use of it. I could buy myself some new clothing, maybe a new iPhone. Or they might say, oh, well, you could give those things to the poor. And even now that they found in the Padmanabha Swami temple in Kerala, they found great fortunes there. A lot of wealth, a lot of gold, jewels, gems, diamonds, all kind of things. And people are saying, well, why does the god need it? Why does the temple need it? They're not using it. It's just locked away. They didn't even know they had it there until the courts ordered them to open it so they could evaluate the assets of the temple. People are saying, oh, you could take that money and give it to the poor and we could feed hungry people and we could do so much good in the world with it. And of course, this is a very worldly way of thinking. It's not a very spiritual way of thinking. Of course, God doesn't need our worship. But we need to do the worship to open ourselves to the grace of God. The devas are in the inner realms. When we do a big yajnam, when we do a big puja, a sacred temple, it attracts thousands of devas come and they help through this. But they're in the inner realm. The people don't see them, and the people are not open to their blessing. The people need to contribute. They need to give something to create an openness. Karmically, the people are not open to the grace which heals them, which relieves their suffering, takes away their problems in life. They're not open to it. Why? Because they have the karma from the past. Their minds are full of fear and guilt and doubt and confusion and resentment. They can't receive the grace. It's on account of this fear and this resentment and this anger and the depression and other negative emotions we carry with us in the subconscious mind that we experience difficulties in life. If we're too afraid to change ourselves, how can we experience any positive benefits, any changes in our life? We won't experience it. We've got to go within. We've got to have an openness, and the devas can help a great deal. They can help release the negativity. They can fill us with positivity instead. The puja itself, the yoga practices, the mantra, the dhyanams, the meditations, the ahutis, the offerings, the upacharas, the different worshipful offerings we make. It helps empower. This meditation, it brings about the positive energy that replaces the negative energies in our mind. But we have to have an openness. You can't pour pure water into a cup that's full. If the cup is full, you have to empty it, and then only can you pour something in. We've got to create an openness. The devas are there and they can bless. It helps them to get access to the physical realm when we make physical offerings. The pranas in those offerings are used by them. They restructure the energy. This nutritive substance is the prana in food. Ayurveda tells us that we're nourished when we eat food by the prana in the food. The prana, the subtle nutrients, is used by the devas. They use this prana, they charge it with energy. Once it's offered, they can energize these things to bless the people. And they don't need to physically come and take the prasad and eat the fruits that were offered, because the energy is present there and it affects the world. And who does it affect? It will tend to affect the people nearby more so. It will tend to affect the people who are open to it the most. Even if 100 people go to the temple, one person may sit and go into a state of samadhi and be free from the karma entirely. Other people, they may just have little blessings come. Their health problems improve. Their confidence increases. They get an answer to a question they've been pondering for a long time. Simple little things like this may happen. It's on account of the openness. If we're not open, it's because we have a lot of karma. We don't have the grace. We can get the grace. We create punyam, merit. It allows us to receive the positive energies by giving. That's why it's important that we give dakshinam to the swamis and dakshinam to the purohits, the priests. And we give a donation, a dakshinam. And when there's a big puja, we should support this effort. It opens us to the blessing there. If we have faith in the rishis, who gave us this system of worship for freeing people from their suffering, if we have faith in God, then it is our duty to give to the temples, to give to the people. Let me tell a story to illustrate. When I was young, before I had consciously started my sadhana, my spiritual practice, I was not happy looking around me in the world. I saw people suffering. I saw people who were homeless. I saw a disproportionate amount of people of color who were homeless and who were in jail. And I started doing work to support the equal rights of people. And I started doing work to feed the homeless people. In particular, we were cooking food for the homeless people. We would go and try to get the donations of the food. We'd go to the supermarkets and we'd say, give us, the grocer, we'd say, give us this food, please, that you're going to throw away anyway. It's going bad, so you won't be able to sell it, so you're putting it in the garbage. Please, let us take it. We'll cut out the bad parts, and we'll give it to the hungry people. And they would say, no. That's too much liability for us. If those people get sick, they could sue us, and because the food came from our store, we'll get in trouble. We don't want to take any risks like this. And so they had this selfishness like that prevented them from being able to help. And so what did we do? Myself and several other dedicated people at various different times, we got jobs and we were working, and we take the money from our job and we buy food and we cook it for the homeless people and the hungry people. And anyone who wanted could come and eat food. And we were cooking the vegetarian food because it's better for the environment and better for the animals. Reduces suffering in the world. And that was our intention, to reduce the suffering. But one thing I would find is that however many times we cooked and we would sit and talk to these people and be friendly to them, the same people would come back. Always, again, the next day, hungry, still hungry. Even though we had fed them, they digest the food and then they need more food. And I started to ask myself the question, is what we're doing really helping these people? Or are we just perpetuating their situation? And so I started talking to these people and asking them, why are you homeless? Why don't you have a job? Do you want a job? And some of the people, they were clearly mentally ill. And they'd say, oh, I like to be homeless. I don't want a job. I don't want to do anything. I like it. I was homeless. It's too cold last night. I wish I had a jacket. This man hurt me and stole all my things. And, they're telling stories like this. And don't you want to get away from this? And they say, no, I like that. I prefer this. So they had a mental illness, a block. But other people, they seemed, from what they said, to be reasonable. They would say they had sad stories. They'd say, oh, well, my wife divorced me after 25 years of marriage. She was cheating on me with some other man, and I came to know, and she divorced me, and I lost my house in the divorce. And because I didn't have a house, I couldn't shower, and I lost my job. So I lost everything. I lost my wife. I'd love to get a job, but I'm so dirty and I smell, and I don't have a telephone. I can't call them. They can't call me back. And I don't have an address on the job application. They ask you, what is your address? And they want to mail to me things to verify the address. And I said, well, okay. Quite a few people like this I spoke to. And I said, okay, well, use my address. Use my telephone. Let's get you some clean clothes. And I'd go, I'd take them, and they'd pick out some suitable clothes for a job interview. I tried to just bring them some clothes, but they'd say, no, that's not suitable for this job I need to go to. So I said, okay, let's go to the store. Let's buy you some clothes. So we got clothes. And then I'd have them come to my house and come and take a shower. And, if they'd call from the job and they say, hi, can I speak to this guy? I'd say, oh, I'm sorry, he's out right now. Let me get him to call you back. And I'd go drive around and find him on the street and give him the telephone. But invariably, except maybe in one case out of dozens and dozens, because several of us were doing this kind of work. We saw many people we were trying to help to get the job. Invariably, at some point in that process, they would stop applying themselves. We'd have people clean, ready to go. They have the clothing, they have the job interview. Now is the time. We come to pick them up and drive them to job interview, and they're nowhere to be found. That's when I started to realize that these people have something going on. Some karma, some trauma that's preventing them from being able to do the things they need to do to get what they want in life. They're consciously, maybe they're unconsciously choosing. Some were consciously choosing, and I thought that they were crazy. But everyone, for the most part, was acting the same. They were acting crazy. Just some were conscious about it, and some were unconscious about it. And we all do these things in life. We're making crazy choices that don't support our true desires because of what's unresolved from our past. And that's when I started to think, well, how can we help this? How can we help people to resolve these things? And then I started to think, well, I can't even resolve the things in my own past, in my own mind. I'm unhappy. How can I help people to resolve these things? And that's when I started to study yoga, Ayurveda, and these sciences. They give us the tools we need to release the negative things from the past, to leave it behind us so we can be happy and we can be more confident and more capable. And so doing that practice, I started to notice positive benefits in my own life. And then I realized, because I had some knowledge of this, it had become my duty to start to share that knowledge and help other people to benefit themselves by getting free from these things in the past. And one thing that was very, very helpful for me was the japa, the mantra repetition. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And I noticed also that practice would be empowered very much at the sacred times, like a Mahashivaratri. And it would be empowered very much as well if you make offerings, if you light the lamps and you burn incense and you're offering milk. And the more you offer, the more powerful this transformation within yourself can be. The more powerful the energy is generated as you do that practice. It's no longer just inward meditation. It becomes a communion between the three realms, and you are working from the physical realm, and many thousands of devas are working from the inner realms to send this positive energy that heals consciousness. This allows people to step out of the karmic cycles that they're in, step out of the difficulties that they keep facing repeatedly. There's a reason for it. Our karma is not just an action we did in the past. If we act without attachment, we don't create karma. If we carry with us unresolved past impressions, if we have some responses to the past that we carry with us, then this will create karma. And this can keep us bound in a situation where a person can't get married, they can't have children, or they can't get a job, or they can't heal themselves from some obstinate disease. The only way to get free is doing the sadhana. And the best way to empower it is as prescribed by our rishis in the Vedas and the Agamas, is a puja and yajnam. We empower it very much by offering all these substances, and we empower even more if we offer it into the sacred fire. Om Namah Shivaya Swaha. People say, oh, but that's good milk you put in the fire. You're burning it up. The hungry people could have eaten it. But then they'll be hungry the next day, and would they have the karma to receive it? Could they even come and receive it if you took the milk and offered it for hungry people? How much good would it do? Wouldn't it do more good if you offered it with the prayer to resolve within that person the mental blocks that cause them to get into the situation which makes them hungry? And then we can teach these people to provide for themselves, because it's not easy. We can't resolve people's karmas. You know, people say we should give a lot of money to science to find a cure for cancer. There's one difficulty with this thought, that people's karma has been to have this disease we call cancer. If we have a cure, will the people take the cure? No. Will it help them? No, because it's their karma. And even if we can cure it, then some other disease will come that we cannot cure, because this has been the people's karma. We've got to change the karma before the outer situation can change. And that's why it's not a waste, and these things are so important that we do these offerings. It's a duty to all of us. If we don't know how to make these offerings, we should learn. If we don't have time to learn, we're focused on other things. At least we need to give a good portion of our money to the temples, to the teachers teaching these things, to the priests chanting the mantras, to the sadhus doing sadhana for the peace of the world. We have to support this. It does so much good. This can, if we're doing more yajnams, it eases the weather. We're having some fierce weather in the world now. It stabilizes the weather. We get natural, regular, appropriate amounts of rain to nourish the plants, and they grow stronger. We get more abundance of food. It eases, it can remove situations like a pandemic. This is a collective karma of the world. We have the vaccinations, which do a lot of good, but people are still suffering, and now there's different strains that are more strains of the virus that are more resistant to the vaccination. So even now vaccinated people are getting the virus because the virus shifted. We created the solution in the world without addressing the spiritual thing that was going on, and so the virus shifted. We've got to resolve the karma. We can't ever be free from suffering. That's why it's so important. And then it brings a positive energy wherever it's done. And so if we pour that milk then out in the plants outside, it fertilizes them. Not just with the prana of the food, but with this supercharged spiritual energy. And I've seen it many times. We do a abhishekam ritual, pouring the liquids and milk and yogurt and other things over the deity, fruit juices. And it gets very much empowered. And we take a little bit as prasad. It's much more than we can consume even before it would spoil. We take the rest and we pour it out with the thought of spreading the energy for the peace of the world. We pour it out to the plants. And I've seen many times that after a big ceremony like this, you pour this liquid substances, we call it tirtam. It's very sacred. like a holy river. It's very sacred. We pour these substances, and the fruits get bigger, the flowers get bigger, they get very huge and healthy. I've seen marigolds that usually grow about this big get this big. I've seen water lilies that usually grow about this big get this big. After we did the yajnam, after we did the abhishekam, it supports nature. And the animals can come and take the substances that are remaining. If there's some fruits and things, we put that out for the animals. We give it for all the spiritual beings in need, and we give it for all the animals in need. It's our duty, not just to give to the people. And I don't mean to say we shouldn't try to do some charity work. We should. But the more important work, the deeper work that enables those who are doing the physical charity work. Those who don't have faith will do the physical charity work. Those who do have faith will do the sadhana. They'll do their inner practice, and they'll pray for the peace of the world, and they'll practice for the peace of the world, because this enables all this to work. Otherwise, we have a situation like they create a vaccination that gives people some protection from the virus, and the virus shifts itself. We've got to address the spiritual reasons, the inner reason. It's not even purely spiritual. We could look at it as psychological. But Western psychology has a lot to learn from Ayurveda. Western psychology says a lot of conditions are incurable. They just give a medication to control the symptoms. And then the disease persists. Ayurveda does the opposite. They'll give a meditation to get to the root cause. They'll give a mantra, a meditation, and it'll take a person to the root cause of the problem, and then it gets uprooted, it gets healed. And so it's very important that we look at things differently, that we have a spiritual consciousness. If we say we have faith in the sages, we say we have faith in God, there should be no concern, no question. Is this a waste? Surely it's not a waste. We have to have great faith, and we have to persist in our practice, and we have to keep supporting all of the pujas and temples, and we'll see. It makes a very positive difference in the world. Om yakyena yakyamaya jantate vaha tani dharmani prathamanyasan tehanakam mahimanas sachante yitra purve sadhyas sante devaha.